Welcome back to the deep dive. So you've sent us a really fascinating stack of material today. It's a whole collection of notes and observations from a gardener,
A very dedicated one.
right, who went on this surprisingly deep journey of botanical discovery. Our mission, as always, is take these sources, unpack them, and give you the clearest, fastest route to being really well-informed on a topic.
And a very specific topic today.
A very specific topic. We are focusing our lens on the backyard, specifically on this stunning waxy white flower.
Yeah.
Now, our source author, they mentioned in their notes that they'd spent years, just ignoring an entire genus of plants. They never really connected with what most of us just call jasmine.
Just didn't click for them.
Not at all. And then they found something that looked like it, kind of smelled like it, but wasn't. And it completely changed their perspective.
Okay.
Let's unpack this. We are diving into the identity crisis of the crepe jasmine.
And that's really the heart of our mission for you today. The aha moment in these notes, the real key, is when the gardener realized the plant they loved was, well, kind of an imposter.
An imposter, yeah.
So we're going to explore why this plant gets called false jasmine, and more importantly, we're going to give you the one single definitive physical trait that separates it from the real deal.
That's the goal. A shortcut to confidence if you're ever confused by nursery tags.
Exactly.
So let's start right there with the confusion. I mean, the notes say this plant is just drowning in names.
Ooh, it's a classic case.
It's called crepe jasmine, which is charming. But then locally, it's often called Thai jasmine.
Right, suggesting a geographical origin.
And then, of course, the big one they found, false jasmine.
And that's the ultimate case of, common sense failing science. Plants get grouped by how they look. If it has a white flower and it smells good, people just sort of lump it in with a name they know.
Like jasmine.
Like jasmine. But what's really interesting in the source material is that this gardener was so turned off by the true jasmine varieties they'd seen.
The sprawling ones.
Exactly. The sprawling, sometimes messy vines. They were actively avoiding the real thing.
That's a great point. They resisted the true Jasminum genus, but they were completely drawn in by this one. It says a lot about how aesthetics can trump, scientific accuracy in the real world.
Absolutely. But to really get it, we have to go to the core knowledge from the source. This plant is not in the Jasminum genus at all.
Okay.
It belongs to the genus Tabernaemontana. The specific species here is Tabernaemontana divaricata.
Tabernaemontana, so a completely different family of plants.
Completely different. Different evolutionary path and, crucially, different growth characteristics. That one name changes everything.
So we've got the identity crisis down. It looks like jasmine, but it's actually a Tabernaemontana. Now, for you, the listener, standing in a garden center, how do you know? If the names are useless and they look the same, what's the trick? What do the sources say?
And that's the question every curious gardener asks. You need a physical difference, something you can test that isn't just about sight or smell, because those can be subjective.
Right.
And the gardener's notes pinpoint the single most reliable, easy-to-spot difference. And it all comes down to a small physical test.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. This is that actionable insight we're always looking for. The notes are very specific about what happens when you break a stem.
Just a tiny piece.
A tiny piece of this crepe jasmine. It's a trick that immediately separates the true from the false.
This is the definitive biological feature. When you snap a stem or even just tear a leaf of the Tabernaemontana divaricata, it immediately starts to ooze this thick, milky white substance.
Milky white.
The source is very precise here. The substance is known as latex.
Latex. And what about a true jasmine?
A true jasmine one that's actually in the Jasminum genus does not exude that milky sap, period. Nothing. That's the barrier. So if you're vetting a plant, that little test, the latex test, is the botanical fingerprint. It tells you everything.
That is powerful. But why? I mean, why does the presence of latex mean such a huge difference? It's not just about the color of the sap, is it?
No, exactly. This is more than just trivia. The fact that it produces latex is a strong indicator of a completely different evolutionary line.
Okay.
Many plants that produce latex, like this one, belong to families known for having what are called secondary metabolites. They often function as defense mechanisms.
So the milky sap is basically the plant's chemical armor.
In many cases, yes. It plugs wounds right away to prevent infection, and it often tastes bitter or can be a little toxic, which deters pests.
Interesting.
So that one difference guides everything, from how you propagate it, because the latex can gum up your tools, to its overall hardiness. It tells us these two plants are miles apart on the tree of life.
That also brings up a practical question for the gardener then. If it's a defense mechanism, Is it something you need to worry about? Is it just messy, or do you need gloves?
Very important question. The latex from Tabernaemontana divaricata is considered, highly toxic, like sap from a poinsettia might be. Okay, but it's still sap. It's sticky, it's messy, and if you have sensitive skin, it might cause some irritation. So if you're pruning, yeah, wearing gloves is probably a good idea. It's a different handling approach than a sap-free true jasmine.
So that distinction, the messy protective latex versus a clean break, that's the core knowledge nugget. It completely frees you from having to rely on those confusing common names.
And it makes the knowledge immediately usable. You now understand the plant functionally, not just by how it looks.
Okay, so identity crisis solved. Let's pivot to what actually won the gardener over. The source material spends a lot of time on why this false jasmine worked, where the true jasmines always failed to impress them.
Yes, and it comes down to habit and utility. The looks are striking, but the plant structure is its secret weapon.
Okay.
The author really emphasizes that this plant, unlike so many of those vining jasmines, naturally keeps a compact, disciplined shape. They describe the foliage as small and tidy, just a neat miniature shrub.
The word dwarf came up in the notes.
Right.
A dwarf shrub habit.
Precisely. And that immediately suggests it's easy to maintain. Many true jasmines need constant staking or a trellis or heavy pruning to not look unruly.
They can get out of control fast.
They can. But the Tabernaemontana divaricata, it seems almost pre-formatted for neatness. It's naturally disciplined. It saves a gardener a ton of work.
Let's talk about the flowers themselves, because they're the whole reason for the name confusion in the first place.
They are magnificent. The notes describe them as having these really striking, waxy white petals. It gives them this durable, almost porcelain look.
And the structure is key.
The structure is key. It's not just a random cluster of petals. These flowers typically have 5 petals, and they're arranged in this very distinct pinwheel configuration.
A pinwheel. I can picture that.
Yeah, and the author notes this wonderful little detail. Each waxy petal curves just slightly, overlapping the next one, almost like shingles on a roof.
That's a great detail, and that adds to the sense of tidiness we were talking about. It's not just a beautiful bloom, it's a perfectly sculpted one.
And that combination, the tidy foliage, the disciplined habit, the sculpted flowers, it all leads directly to the main conclusion the gardener reached about its utility.
Which brings us back to their personal situation. They're trying to declutter their backyard balcony.
And that's the most relatable part of this whole story. They needed a compact, high-impact plant that wouldn't immediately outgrow its pot. They needed elegance without the sprawl.
Right.
And because of that compact structure, that dwarf habit, that source author concludes that the crepe jasmine is an excellent candidate for container gardening.
So if you, the listener, are gardening on a patio or a balcony where space is tight, that scientific difference we found, the latex, actually translates into a huge practical benefit.
Absolutely. The plant is botanically distinct, and that's what makes it functionally superior for container life compared to a lot of the climbing true jasmines.
It's a perfect example of how the deep dive works. Curiosity about a name leads to the science, which leads to understanding the growth habit, which ultimately informs a very practical choice for a specific environment.
That's how efficient knowledge acquisition works, a really beautiful synthesis in those notes.
So we started this whole journey deep in botanical confusion. We had conflicting names, visual deception. But now we've established, if you break a stem and see that milky white latex, you've got a Tabernaemontana divaricata, not a true jasmine.
Right.
And you also know that this difference leads to a plant with that tidy dwarf habit and those waxy pinwheel flowers.
And the lesson here for you is the value of detailed observation. Tabernaemontana divaricata is a case study in why gardeners get frustrated, but also how you can find real confidence.
You've got the 3 differentiators now.
You've got them. The latex, the flower shape, and the tidy habit. All of that makes the crepe jasmine unique and, super useful, especially for container planting. So never just trust a common name. Always check for the sap.
So what does this all mean? We've seen that the crepe jasmine, or Thai jasmine, is botanically false. But the entire reason our source author loved it was because the true versions failed to meet their real-world needs.
Needs dictated by limited space and a desire for neatness.
Exactly. They found a plant that fits their life perfectly. So here's the thought to leave you with. If a plant is beautiful, perfectly suited for a tough spot like a small balcony, and it catches your eye where the true version failed, does its false jasmine name ultimately mean anything?
Beyond just the botanical accuracy, you mean?
Yeah. Perhaps the best plant for you is simply the one that fits your environment, your lifestyle, and your eye. regardless of what genus label a scientist assigned to it centuries ago. Something to chew on the next time you're standing in the nursery, trying to decide between botanical pedigree and what just works for you.